Okay, you're very welcome. Thanks for joining us this afternoon. We have a webinar this afternoon I know is of interest to the industry because we have issues with recruitment in our industry at the moment, and we're always all ears for some solutions to that particular issue. So CF has been having discussions with Department of Justice recently, who have a pilot program for placement of young offenders and looking for employment routes for them and rehabilitation routes and so on. So there seems to be some good synergy there. So I'm pleased this afternoon we're joined by Paula Mcneill from Department of Justice, who's going to outline the shape of the programme and the benefits for the young people and potentially for the employers in the industry. And then Paula will be handing over to Roisin Sloan from Department for Communities, and Roisin's in charge of the money and the support through the JobStart programme. And what I would say to you is during it's fairly brief presentations, if you have any questions that come up, if you go to the bottom of your screen, you'll see a Q&A function. If you want to put your questions into Q&A, then I will pick up all the questions at the end. And certainly, I know that Paula and Roisin will be happy to answer all those questions for you at the end. So with no further ado, Paula, you're kicking off. I'll hand over to you, and thanks very much for giving us your time this afternoon.
Thanks, Mark, and thanks everyone for giving me the opportunity to speak today. My name's Paula Mcneill, and I'm from the Reducing Offending Policy Unit within the Department of Justice. And I'd like to briefly discuss the importance of employment for those in contact with the justice system, and indeed the benefits employers can gain by having a diverse and inclusive workforce. And I'm pleased that Roisin is here today from the Department for Communities to provide some more information about the great opportunities that can be gained through the JobStart programme. So it's recognised that employment and indeed training, particularly upon release from custody, is a key component of an individual's journey away from offending. Getting and keeping a job is a key priority for many people, and being given an opportunity to use their life experience can be empowering, especially if they've been failed by others in the past. Equally, for young people with limited experience, employment opportunities can provide them with the additional skills and expertise they need to create a life for themselves away from the justice system. In many instances, such young people have been failed in their lives so far and haven't been given an opportunity to develop to their full potential. All of you watching today are fortunate to be gainfully employed or self-employed, and I'd like you to ask yourself what benefits your job brings to your life. Then put yourself in the shoes of a person who is unemployed with a history of being in contact with the justice system, and imagine how paid employment could make a difference not only to them, but to their families and wider communities. Giving people a chance to lead a life away from offending will ultimately lead to a reduction in reoffending, which means fewer victims and a safer community within which to live. And once restrictions permit, the department would be only too glad to facilitate seeing as believing visits to prison establishments and to youth justice so that you can get to meet individuals, understand their journeys, and actually witness their skills and expertise at first hand. Recruiting from a diverse range of backgrounds can help widen the talent pool available to employers and bring a number of benefits to businesses. The results of a Business in the Community survey found that 92% of businesses with open recruitment policies say the approach has enhanced their reputation, often helping them win new contracts. Those with previous convictions are people who have overcome their own personal challenges and can think outside the box, bringing fresh ideas and solutions to problems, qualities that every employer should value. Businesses who do employ those with convictions report that employees see the jobs as a vital second chance, so many go the extra mile to secure results. They have lower rates of absenteeism as they take less time off work than the average UK employee, and have a strong commitment to their organisation and high levels of loyalty to stay longer with their employer due to the value they place on having a job. The results of the 2019 Ministry of Justice call for evidence into supporting ex-offenders into the path to employment, found that employers reported having positive experiences and affirmed that those with previous convictions were important assets to the company, given their skills, commitment and experience. It's also encouraging to note the results of a 2019 YouGov poll, which reported that 81% of employers agree that employing those who have previously offended has helped their business. And it's also worth noting that many people have gained valuable and transferable skills whilst in contact with the justice system. And this is a benefit that's been realised by employers who are currently looking to the prison establishments to help plug the gaps in their labour shortages. And this is actually in part due to the delivery of learning and skills by further education colleges and voluntary and community sector organisations in a custodial environment. And they have flexible enough provision of learning and skills to meet labour market needs, changing labour market needs indeed. Nelson Mandela once said, "Do not judge me by my success, judge me by how many times I fell down and got back up again." These are powerful words from a great leader who knew only too well what it was like to overcome adversity and ultimately be recognised for his talents by an entire nation. Many individuals who find themselves with convictions will rely on the understanding, empathy and fairness of others to give them opportunities for a fresh start free from offending. This is particularly the case when it comes to gaining employment. Most organisations want to employ hardworking people who are dedicated, reliable and talented. And thankfully, many organisations actively seek out those who have previous convictions as they strive for a diverse and inclusive workforce. However, many may not have fully considered the benefits to their organisation that people from different types of life experiences can bring. For this reason, and the obvious link between employment and offending, the department has been supporting a number of measures to enhance the employability of those with convictions. Such measures include supporting business in the community to launch the Ban the Box campaign, which encourages employers to remove the criminal record checkbox from job application forms and only ask about convictions, if appropriate to do so, at a more suitable stage in the recruitment process. The Justice Minister supported the launch of the campaign back in September. The department is also supportive of social enterprises who employ those with convictions and supports the use of social clauses to provide training and employment opportunities. However, as a department, we can't enhance the employability of those with convictions in isolation, which is why partnership working is so crucial to providing the right infrastructure of support to individuals on their employment journey. We work closely with other government departments and voluntary and community sector organisations, such as been part of the Department for the Economy's Skills Strategy Project Board and been represented on the Department for Community's Employability NI programme, which is working to introduce jobs and benefits work coaches into prison establishments and also exploring opportunities for those with convictions under the new labour market partnerships at local government level. This collaborative working also extends to supporting Roisin and her Department for Communities colleagues in their work to promote and implement the JobStart programme. The department, along with Justice Partners, has been working with Roisin on a justice pilot, which specifically targets those young people in contact with the justice system to provide an extended period of paid work experience. So I think now is the time for me to hand over to Roisin so she can give you a bit more information about the programme, and I hope you might consider being part of it. Thanks for your time and your attention.
Okay, thanks, Paula. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for coming along to today's session. My name is Roisin Sloan, and I'm head of the JobStart scheme for Northern Ireland. And as Paula says, I work for the Department for Communities. Hopefully that screen is coming up okay and everybody can see it. Yes, okay, great. Okay, so where did JobStart originate from? So as part of the COVID response last year, you remember the Chancellor, Rishi Sunak, announced measures to help the COVID response on the basis that it was felt that a lot of people were going to be unemployed due to COVID, and the young people in particular were going to be adversely affected by the whole COVID situation. So money was given to England, Scotland and Wales to develop a kickstart scheme across the water, but as we're a devolved nation, we were never going to get kickstart here, but we were always going to get the money through our executive to develop a scheme suitable for young people in Northern Ireland. So we did duly get the money for the scheme, and we've called it the JobStart scheme for Northern Ireland. So the scheme is open to 16 to 24-year-olds who are at risk of long-term unemployment, as to help them to get into the job market by us funding and providing funding for employers to create 6-month or 9-month job opportunities. And I'll come on to the difference between the two in a few minutes. I've made some subtle differences between JobStart and Kickstart. Ours is much more flexible. Across the water, Kickstart's only open to those who are on universal credit. Over here, I've opened our scheme to all benefits. So young people on any benefit, included all of those listed. And also I've opened wider again to young people who are not in employment, education or training. Before coming into this role, I had responsibility for the NEAT strategy for Northern Ireland when I worked for the Department for the Economy. I learned a lot about young people and the barriers that they faced in terms of being NEAT, and including those who are based in the criminal justice system, young people who might be care experienced and young people with disabilities. So I have incorporated all of those into the scheme, and hence such close working with Paula and her colleagues in DOJ and across the prison network and across the probation services and youth justice agency as well. And I'll come on to that in a wee bit more detail in a few minutes. So the scheme is about creating quality opportunities for young people. So we want young people to get meaningful job opportunities where they will enhance their skills and learning, and it will set them up hopefully for a job going forward. The scheme is just for opportunities created just for the JobStart scheme. So they can't displace the current workforce or replace people who might have been previously on furlough. That's not what the scheme's about. The scheme's about creating opportunities just for those young people who are coming onto the scheme. Now, at the end of the 6 or 9 month period, there's nothing to stop an employer, moving those young people into an existing vacancy, following all of the training and their learning from the scheme. And in fact, we encourage that, and we hope that would be the case. Employers are not required to keep the young people, but we're hoping, by the nature of the scheme and the time that the young person's with the employer, that that the young person will have proved themselves, and that's 6 or 9 months, and the employer won't want to lose all of that skills and training and the good work of the young person. So we're hoping that happens naturally. I've also teamed up with my previous colleagues in the Department for Economy, and we have created an apprenticeship pathway as well coming out of JobStart. So if someone was in the JobStart scheme and there was an apprenticeship opportunity available, we're encouraging the employer then to keep the young person in an apprenticeship and study towards a level 2 or a level 3 or a higher level apprenticeship, depending what level they're at when they come onto the scheme. So there's quite a few pathways in terms of where the young person can progress to after their time in the JobStart scheme. The young person then will get a quality 6 month or 9 month job opportunity, which will help them develop their skills and experience. They'll also have a training plan that will be completed by the employer within 2 weeks of the young person starting work. So the employer will be asked to provide 5 occupational related skills along with employability skills as well, in terms of what the young person's going to learn. Again, this is a slight difference from the Kickstart scheme across the water. All that's required in the Kickstart scheme is employability skills, but I wanted to make sure that, if a young person goes in, to example, into the retail environment, that they're not stacking shelves for 6 months. So a way to protect them, to make sure that doesn't happen, is that, we'd expect the employer to be coming up with occupational skills such as learning how to do the till system, learning about product knowledge, learn how to deal with difficult customers, learn how to order from suppliers. It's all those types of quality, meaningful opportunities. And we do monitor the training plan as the young person progresses through the scheme. I did mention the 9 month opportunities. So I've increased the scheme to 9 months for those who are furthest away from the labour market and probably have more barriers to overcome. So for that, we have increased to 9 months for young people who might have a disability, young people who are in the care experience system and with the trusts, young people who are in the criminal justice system as well. So they're all entitled to a 9 month opportunity. The young person then will also be provided with any additional equipment they need, or any uniforms or credit training that the employer deems appropriate for the job. Now, to help the employer to pay for all of that, we do allow what is called a startup payment when they're taking the young person on. So once you recruit the young person, we will ask you to submit the training plan within 2 weeks of starting the young person. And once we've received that and approved the training plan, then we will release a £1,500 payment for the young person. The training plan payment can be used for uniforms, if they need uniforms, PPE equipment, any tools potentially they might need for the job, any IT equipment they might need for the job, and indeed any accredited training that you might deem necessary for the young person to help them settle into the job. So if they needed a CSR card, or they needed some other type of accredited training relating to the job that they're going to be doing, then that can all be financed through the £1,500. A portion of the £1,500 can also be used by employers in recognition that, you know, there's a time cost to businesses when they take on a young person, in terms of putting someone alongside them to train them up for the skills of the job. So we also take that into account within the £1,500 payment. In addition to that, then we will also pay 100% of the relevant national minimum wage for 25 hours a week. And we will pay depending on the age of the young person. That will determine the rate that the employer is paid. We'll also pay the employer national insurance contributions and any minimum automatic enrolment contributions like pensions and things like that as well. So all of those will be covered through the funding for the 6 or 9 month opportunity. Employers of all sizes and shapes can take part in the scheme. So you can be a small employer or a large employer. And you can take part in the scheme. Depending on the size of your company, we have applied a ratio in terms of numbers. Obviously, we need to make sure that the young person gets a quality opportunity. So that's really, really important. So we couldn't give somebody who's maybe got 2 employees 10 JobStart people, because it wouldn't be a quality opportunity. So this whole scheme is about quality. So we do have a ratio. So for companies of less than 3 employees, we apply a 1-to-1 ratio. For companies with 4 to 20 employees, we have a 2-to-1 ratio. And for companies with 21 plus employees, we apply a 3-to-1 ratio. And that's how we work out the ratio side of it. So how do you apply as an employer? So we have a registration portal for JobStart. So you can Google JobStart registration, or you can go to NI Business Info website, or you can go to NI Direct, where you'll be diverted through any of those sites to the portal. You just go in there and you complete the registration process. There's guidance on there about how to complete the applications as well, which will help, you know, guide you through the processes. And then we will assess the applications based on what you've told us in your application, and to make sure that they're deemed as quality job opportunities for our young people. And as I've mentioned earlier, the post-student displaced current staff or replace those in furlough. And then once we have completed the recruitment process, then you will just recruit and select like you would do for any other employee. So once we have approved your application, we send you out a letter of offer. We'll also send you out a template to fill in the details of the vacancies that you're offering. When you send those back to us, we put them onto our Job Centre online jobs portal. They're free for young people to view, and also the work coaches and their jobs and benefits offices to view as well. When the vacancy closes, then you will recruit as normal. In terms of the vacancies, the young person won't see your contact details when they apply. We don't want you to be overrun by applications, so they have to go through the work coaches or through my team in the design centre. And at that stage, we will check that the young person is deemed a suitable applicant for the opportunity. And at that stage, we will pass on the details of how the young person applies to the scheme, and then the young person will come through to you directly with their CV for you to assess and decide whether or not you want to interview the young person for the job. In terms of then the role of my team, then I have a team in the design centre in Belfast, and we deal with all young people who are not on benefits. So anybody coming through the criminal justice system, or care experienced young people, or those with disabilities, or those who are NEET, who are not in the benefit system, we will assess them and deem whether or not they're a good fit for the employer. We process all the applications, assess the training plans, and then my team is responsible for all of the payment functionality as well. So once you get your young person into post, then we will pay you monthly in arrears on receipt of a payslip to show that the young person has gone through the PAYE system. The work coaches, then if it is a young person who's on benefits, then they will go through the work coach who will check that they're work ready and that they're a good fit for the opportunity that is available to them. They will also be able to identify opportunities that are on Job Centre Online for young people on their caseloads and make contact with them directly. And then they can do job matching and pre-selection to the job vacancies directly, between the employer and the young person. I've mentioned the pathways already in terms of working with the Department for Economy. The scheme launched on the 2nd of April and it's due to close on the 31st of March. And at this point, employers can apply up to the end of March to participate in the scheme. And then finally, just to mention the specialist pathways. So these are the 9-month opportunities that I mentioned already. So we have, at the minute, we've got 16 young people with disabilities working in our own department. I've got 2 young people with disabilities in my team. They're getting on really well. They're doing a great job and they're really learning some great skills working alongside my team. We plan to make this NICS wide and go out to other departments as well to provide opportunities. We're working closely with the Department of Justice, which is Paula and her team, and we have a stakeholder group comprising of the prisons, the 3 prisons, the probation service, the Youth Justice Agency, businesses and community are in there, Belfast Met are in there, and there's a number of other stakeholders like NACO and Extern who are all working with us within this group to try and identify employers who are sympathetic to the needs of young people in the criminal justice system who have just come out in to the community and license. I've also been looking at the JobStart employers who have already applied for the scheme. We're inundated with employers for the scheme, which is great. And we're looking at employers who would be sympathetic to the needs of these young people. So already we have some big companies on board who have been sympathetic to the needs of this particular cohort. And one of those would be B&M. So young people who are interested in a retail role, B&M have very kindly interviewed and taken on a number of young people from the criminal justice system already, which is great. So they're really leading the way for us in terms of JobStart. And just this morning, we found we've got another 2 young people from the criminal justice system into employment. I think one's with B&M and one's with another employer. So we're openly promoting, the fact that the only difference between a young person in the criminal justice system and one, on the outside is a wall, and these people in the criminal justice system are equally as able and as competent to do the JobStart roles as any other young people. So, but we wanted to give them the extra 3 months to give them a settling in period and give them time, to settle in and have any barriers removed if they do have any potential barriers, which then will lead to a full 6 months, hopefully, that is barrier free, because the first 3 months will remove all of those. And we've got a similar 6 months or 9 months for those with disabilities as well, on the assumption that those with disabilities will have more barriers and issues to overcome as well, as will young people who are care experienced and are within the trust. So at the minute, the trusts have also given us 12 jobs per trust area. So there's 60 jobs for young people who are care experienced as well getting into the trusts. And again, they'll get 9 months. And then the final group we're working with is the executive office. We're working with our communities and transition team to identify young people and the 8 communities and transition areas across Northern Ireland who are at risk of falling into paramilitary activity or coercive control. So we're really using JobStart as a tool and as a method really to help all young people who need our help, and those with the most barriers probably need it the most. And that's why I'm so excited about the specialist pathways that we've developed and being able to work in partnership with the Department of Justice for this particular cohort. So that's a whistle stop tour of JobStart, and I'll just pass you back to Mark.
Great, Roisin and Paula, thank you both. We have a few questions here, and I would just say, if anybody wants to tap in a question, that's fine. Equally, if you want to raise your hand, you don't mind speaking out, we can enable you to speak as well, so make it quite interactive. So a couple of questions that did come in. The March 22 date is obviously significant, but what impact does that March 22 date have on a placement that realistically now we'd be looking into January, February, wouldn't we, to place somebody at this point?
Yeah, March 22 is when our budget expires, for this financial year. You will know that the Department of Finance have just put out the next year's budget, and for a 3-year budget for public consultation. So at this stage, we don't know what our budget is for next year. So we can't go beyond what our budget capacity is at the minute. So we've had to put March 22 on at this stage until the executive decides, and of course the public as well, in terms of where all of the money is pointed towards. So at this point, we don't know, and we'll not know until probably the consultation closes, which isn't until the 7th of March. So these are our timescales at this stage, which could be subject to change if the minister so decides. But at this point, this is the position we're at.
Okay.
Mark, could I possibly add to Roisin's point on that? And it might be worth just clarifying that for those who are already enrolled in the scheme, it's not as if the scheme will end at the end of March, so their placement will continue beyond that date.
Yeah.
But yeah, applications, Roisin, if I'm correct, need to be in by the end of March and secured. But the placement will continue for the 9 months beyond that.
Yes, anybody on the scheme will stay on the scheme, even if it does go into next year's budget. You know, it'll have to be committed in terms of those who join the scheme. So if anybody joins the scheme in January and they get 9 months, they will still get the full months. It won't expire until October or whatever. So yeah, so thanks for raising that, Paula.
Perfect. Just a question then asking about what support that you did touch on it. What support there's available on site. So during the placement, what support's made available to employers and the young person if there are any issues arising or any expectations to be managed on the site?
Yeah, okay. So at the end of month 1, my team will have a conversation with the employer to see how the young person's getting on and to pick up any difficulties or issues. And the employer will have contact telephone numbers directly into my team as well. So if the employer is experiencing any issues, he can contact us. In terms of the young person, then the work coach or my team, depending whether or not they're on benefits, will also be in contact with the young person at the end of month 1 to see how the young person's getting on and if what they're learning from their training plan and if everything is in order in terms of expectations. And we follow that up for the 9-month one. We do another one of those at month 5 and again at month 8. The conversation at month 8 with the employer will also be about what the employer's intention is in terms of whether they're going to keep the young person on and give them a permanent job if they have vacancies, or if potentially they maybe move the person on to an apprenticeship at that stage. So there's a lot of interaction between ourselves and the young person and the employer, but the employer is free to get in contact with us at any stage if there are any unforeseen issues or problems.
Okay, thanks for that. And again, you did touch on it, but when you're talking about the readiness of the young person to start their placement, I mean, is that construction specific? Because I know it would be feedback from the industry. A lot of time young people arrive, if you like, on site and it's not what they were expecting and they don't have a good experience and they don't settle into it. So what sort of level of awareness and training is done for the young person before they're actually out on site?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, the work coaches, the local jobs and benefits offices are the gateway into the scheme. So when I talked earlier about making sure the young person is job ready, that conversation will all consist about what the job entails and the type of role they're getting into and making sure it is a good fit for the young person and is exactly what they want to do. And my team would have a similar conversation for those who aren't on benefits. Now, you know, we know that not every one of them is going to work out first time, and that's the nature of the cohort we're dealing with as well, and some of the barriers potentially that they may have, because some of these young people may drop out because they've hit a barrier, and we're happy to pause the scheme for a couple of weeks if that young person has a barrier that needs to be overcome, and maybe a mental health issue or something like that, maybe they're not capable, but we don't want to write them off, and I'm sure employers won't either, and if we need to work with them a wee bit more to get them into a better place, then we're happy to do that. But it's really about communication, making sure that there's two-way communication or three-way communication between ourselves, the employers, the work coaches, and obviously the young person as well, to try and mitigate anything as it happens.
Okay,
Mark, perhaps I can add to Roisin's points also. Although the scheme isn't specific or labour market specific to any kind of sector, such as construction, we do recognise that a lot of construction type skills are delivered within the justice system, whether that be through youth justice, through probation boards connections with NIACRO and others, or in a custodial environment. So a lot of individuals do gain accreditation whilst in contact with the justice system, and they have opportunities to secure their CSR card also. And also just worth noting that some of these individuals haven't had great starts in life. So they may not always be job ready to the extent that other individuals might be. So sometimes it's about giving the person the opportunity to develop in the role as well. So it's just worth considering that
Yes.
you know, sometimes these people need an opportunity and a chance to develop.
Yep, no, absolutely, Paula, understood. And I've just one more question on my screen here. So if anybody does want to submit another question or raise their hand, please do that now. But another question from a member company who have already successfully had 2 people placed with them for vacancies through JobStart, asking if they could actually get some more. And I guess, Roisin, that's back to what you said. Just depend on the scale of the business. I know the business would be of a scale. So, you know, actually, in terms of the numbers of young people that you have available to place, is there a supply demand issue if there's a big take up of the scheme?
Yeah, well, when we embarked on this journey, we expected the economic situation in Ireland to be much worse than what it was. We expected the unemployment rate to be much higher than it was, and we expected the rate of unemployment for young people to be at 26%. It actually turned out that it's sitting at 12%. You know, so it's much less than what we thought it was going to be. Now that's great news for the economy and for our young people in general, but it has created a bit of a supply issue in terms of young people, you know, to go into the opportunities. But for those that it is helping, it's doing really well, and particularly the young people who may be in this cohort, you know, coming out of the criminal justice system. So, you know, while it may not be hitting every young person, that's not the purpose of the scheme. We want to help those who are there and who do need it. We've done a few media campaigns, and we're currently advertising on TikTok as well, in terms of short videos, you know, for young people, you know, to attract them to the scheme. And we are just bringing young people in as they show an interest in the scheme. Demand and supply, yeah, there are more opportunities out there than there are young people to fill them at this stage. And it's definitely a young person's market. I mean, at this stage, we're sitting with over 1,600 employers who have applied for the scheme, offering over 5,000 opportunities. So there are lots and lots of opportunities across many different sectors, you know. So I suppose the positive in that would be that, you know, because there are such a wide, you know, variety of opportunities, those who do come to this sector want to be there, you know, because they've obviously discounted the other sectors, you know, so that would be a positive out of it.
No, absolutely. No, listen, that sounds very successful. I have no other questions here. So, do we?
That's just me. Just come back to Sandra, because I don't know the size of Sandra's company, and I don't want her to have to broadcast it. So if she contacts me afterwards, I can check that out for her.
Yeah. No, but I was just going to say as well, if it's okay with you, Roisin, we'll circulate your slides after this, and if I can share yours and Paula's contact details as well, if anybody wants to ask any questions afterwards, they can follow up with you. But that is all the questions that. Oh, one more question. Right, here we go. Yes, this is actually a fair point. What risk assessments would need to be done in terms of health and safety on all these types of programs? So the employers would have to, I suppose, adapt maybe some of their standing risk assessments for the young people coming in.
Yeah, that's a good question, Mark. When you're employing a young person under JobStart, you're employing them under any other same terms and conditions as any other employee. So they're your employee over that period, and you will just follow your own company work practices as they said at the minute, because this is employment and that young person is your employee during that period.
Grand. Very good. Okay, listen, that is all we have. And as I say, we'll circulate the information to everybody who registered for the call. But listen, thank you both, Paula and Roisin, for reaching out to the industry. We do appreciate it. Obviously, some of us are taking advantage of it. I hope many more will consider it for you as well. And as I say, we'll maybe catch up in the new year and see how things are progressing. But thanks for giving your time today. Really appreciate it. And have a good Christmas. Enjoy the break.
Thank you very much, and thanks for having us.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.